Hey everybody, it's Paul with reporting live from my sofa. How's it going today? It is Thursday, which is technically our Friday here at the old campground. And y'all, we just gotta say it, I had to wear a little sweater this morning when I went out to do my duties. I am loving it. I've got pumpkin spice this, pumpkin spice that, you name it. Pumpkin spice life all over the place up in here. So anyways, so we are going to be continuing on with the case against Todd Mullis. Day number 2. This case is very interesting. Watching how the proceedings are going down are very interesting. You know, they sit down in the courtroom. It's just kind of different from what we've seen. So it's interesting. It's different. So like I said, we're going to be covering day 2. And without further ado, let's review. Okay, now one of the first people up on the, I almost said stage, one of the first people up on the stand is Terry Stammer. I believe that's how you pronounce her name. This is one of Amy's friends, and she gets up there, and I have some very conflicted feelings about her testimony and her role in this situation, but let's just go over some points that stuck out to me. First of all, let's establish that she had texting correspondence with Amy and with Todd. So she's essentially in the middle of this situation, seeing it from all angles. And she knows about the affair, she knows about that. She's kind of trying to pivot things along the way, and we'll get to that. And to me, it's just a very awkward position to be in for her, because she knows everything, but she has allegiances to each of them in different ways. Now, she does talk about how, Todd was no longer able to trust Amy, how she felt like he kept tabs on her when she left, didn't want her really leaving the farm. And she talks about how, Todd said that he felt like the guy wasn't punished enough that she had an affair with, so he called the guy's wife while he was at work and told her about the affair. And then later with the guy, Jerry, that she has the affair with, she tells her friend Terry about this and how Todd is suspicious and the whole 9 yards. So we kind of see this relationship of, Amy's confiding in her all this stuff. I mean, she knows everything that's going on, and essentially even at times kind of helping cover a little bit by saying like, oh, well, Amy didn't leave my house till 1, or things of this nature. Now, she even says that when she found out about the affair, she told Amy that she was putting herself in a very dangerous situation, because Todd would cause harm to her. And she describes Todd as somebody that you don't want to mess with. Now, she talks about at one point how the secret got out about the affair and this rumor mill started. And it really wasn't a rumor because it was true. And she was essentially urging Amy, look, you need to have a conversation with him. You need to be honest. You just need to sit down and talk. But she also said at the same time, you need to bring your stepdad with you, because she didn't feel that Amy would be safe. She also made mention that Amy was afraid or fearful of what was going on between Todd and Tristan. And I just think that means like the closeness of the relationship, the bond that they had maybe. Now, Terry also gives more insight into the argument that took place with her between Amy and her mother-in-law. And essentially when she went to go pick up one of the kids or something, the mother-in-law was like, you're crazy, and, gives her grief about spending all this time at the hospital, and I'm sure the rumors had gotten to her and things of this nature, and it was a point of contention. Now, she also said that she had the same type procedure that Amy had done, like 5 years before, and that she was up and at them right away. And I was glad she said that, because I was curious, like, well, how did Amy have this procedure? And she's, like, going out to do work, right afterwards. Now, this is one thing that I'm just going to put out there. So, and I'll get to this again in a little bit more detail, but one thing that jumps out to me while I'm watching this is she's scared for Amy's safety about Todd and this, that, and the other, but at the same time, she's kind of helping along the scenario that's going on. So at one point, Amy was going to be staying at a hotel for the fair. She was going to have her side man, Jerry, stay with her. Well, her friend Terry knew about this and was kind of trying to pivot it and telling Todd, oh, you should go surprise Amy at the hotel. And she said, I wanted it to be in a public spot so she'd be safe, but this way it would at least it'd be out and exposed. Now that right there, I'm like, ugh. To me, I feel like this, and again, I'm not her, I'm not them, I don't know the dynamics, but just watching what I hear in the stand, my opinion of what I see is I'm like, you've done your best trying to tell Amy, look, you need to talk to him, you need to do this, encouraging that. That's trying to tip the hands of fate. And if you're so scared of this man hurting Amy, why in heaven's name, I don't care if it's in somewhere public, would you attempt to make that happen? I mean, that just doesn't even make sense to me, you know, and like, oh, it's a public place and this, that, and the other. No, I mean, honestly, what I'm hearing is Todd is, you know, according to her, dangerous, lethal, all this stuff. Why would you even want to create that possibility that something could happen with that? I found that very odd. They do go in and show the text messages between Amy and Terry, and you do see the conversations, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, Amy's just not happy in her marriage. But another thing we see is just how much this whole triangle of these three people are just talking about each other behind each other's backs. I mean, it's when you have that, it's a recipe for disaster in some way. You know, in one text message, she could be talking to Terry about, I don't know what to do about my marriage, this, that, and the other. And then, you know, the next one, it's, oh, I'm going to go have makeup sex with Jerry. So it's just all over the place. And I think that this is what we see. And I'm not trying to sit here and, you know, that's her walk in life. That's what she chose to do. She didn't deserve to die the way that she died by any means. Yeah, but I think oftentimes we see when people are cheating and stuff like that, there's some kind of reasoning why they want their cake and eat it too. But there's just this total confusion in their own life. And they kind of pull people into that vortex around them. And I think too, when we get to the testimony of her lover, Jerry, we'll kind of get a little bit better light on that. So let's continue. Now, in another text message exchange between Todd and Terry, Todd's talking about how you can kind of just see how this plays out. He's saying, you know, oh, well, Amy seems, you know, distant. She's not doing any of her stuff around the farm, you know, but she's running out to get a massage or doing this or doing that. And he even makes at some point like, well, either it's, you know, either I'm making this up or it's true and everybody's lying to me. And I'm just kind of like, oh my God, I feel bad because it's essentially, it's hard to believe, but no, everybody's lying to you. You know, I mean, it's just, it's his kind of worst nightmare or whatever. Now, when the defense goes over this, you know, basically she says at one point, you know, that she felt like Todd was trying to make it out like Amy was crazy because he's listing off these definitions like, you know, these are the textbook symptoms of this. And, you know, at the end of the day, he just doesn't have the 100% proof that, oh no, this is what's going on behind the scenes. So, you know, her testimony, I felt like was a lot of, I mean, I don't want to say hearsay because a lot of it was, we were seeing the text messages from Amy. But on the same note, I mean, a lot of it was just kind of like, why is this even happening? You know, it's just kind of strange. So she was so caught up in their relationship that it was just, it wasn't good. So she was up there for quite some time. Then the next real big whammy for me was Dr. Kelly Crew. And she was the forensic pathologist. And she got up there, she talks about the injuries, she talks about bruising, scraping, abrasions, you know, in the chin, the face, abrasions and bruisings on the chest from blunt force injury, bruises and scrapes on hands, possibly like defensive type wounds, abrasions on the knees, 6 puncture wounds from the rake. I mean, when she's going over all this, you're just like, I mean, again, Amy took a beating. You know, this wasn't a couple of pokes with a fork and she's dead. I mean, this was an all-out, drag-out fight. And so whatever happened, she struggled, she fought for her life, she took a beating, and unfortunately she died. Now, the pathologist does say, because of the way the wounds were, she could have been struck 2 to 3 times, but she can't 100% say. Now, basically, when she goes into, like, what's the cause of death and stuff like that, obviously, it's, you know, it's the corn rake. And she went into a scientific explanation of, well, when you poke somebody, or when you poke a body and it goes into the chest area, it does this, and you start to lose this, and pressure builds up around the heart, and da-da-da-da-da. So, I mean, that part was kind of interesting. But essentially, it's, you know, she died from the corn rake punctures. So, you know, officially, the sharp force injuries was the cause of death, and the manner of death was homicide. Now, another witness came up there. They have several, like, co-worker type people get up there. So another one was Deborah and Scherbering something. I can't say her last name. But essentially the biggest thing there was that she testified that one time Amy essentially talked to her about a time that Tristan said, if Dad finds out you're having an affair, he's going to kill you. and which obviously is not a good thing. Now, the next person on the stand was Angie Burr, and so she gets up there and she's been friends with Amy for like 5 years. Their kids were friends, and she talks about a time that Amy basically was like, hey, can I call you? And, you know, she was upset, so she did. And she said that Tristan didn't want to get in the bus that morning because he was afraid as to what was going to happen to Amy if he wasn't there. And which obviously isn't good. And she's talking about the rumors about the affair, they just need to stop. And then she testifies, you know, that Amy had said she told her at one point she didn't want to leave Todd because she didn't want to leave the kids. So again, all these friends get up there, and what it shows is, you know, there's a whole bunch of Amy going around to everyone she knew and confiding these moments. And I mean, she was in a tangled web. And what I find a lot of times with people is, and I can remember when I was younger and like getting caught up in, you know, teenager tangled webs and 20-something-year-old tangled webs, drama, all that stuff. You know, it's like almost like you wear yourself out with one person in the drama, so you have to go to the next person. And I felt like that's what was going on here. Because as much as there's this talk about the rumor mill, about the affairs and this, that, and the other, there's also, she's talking to so many different people about it that I'm kind of like, well, yeah, I mean, you know, it's not really a secret among your clique, you know, that you're having this, like, affair and people talk. So, you know, I mean, that's going on, and that you just know added fuel to the fire. So then Jerry Frazier gets up there, the man she was having an affair with. So can we just say, number one, how much he looks like her husband, Todd? I was just like, are you kidding me? They could be related. You know, because remember when Todd was arrested, he was heavier. He's lost weight. And so if he had that little bit of extra weight on him, I think he would look even more like Jerry. So that part was very interesting. She definitely has a type. So he gets up there, you know, they just had done, they established the basics, how he worked on this farm, what he did there, the relationships, you know, and he's talking about that. And, you know, he says that basically he and Amy started meeting about once a week. And he confirms the whole story. You know, yeah, Todd confronted him about the text messages. He denied it. A couple of days later, Todd calls his wife. She denies it. And so then Todd called them back. He apologized to the wife, apologized to him. And you know that was a piece of bitter pie for Todd when he learned out that no, indeed it was true. You know, he was just like, I can't believe I apologized. So after that, he talks about how they quit text messaging. They set up Gmail accounts. They show some of the interactions between them. And he confirms how, you know, Amy did say at one point that if Todd found out about the affair, that she would probably disappear. He says, you know, when he's asked, like, well, were you afraid for your life or whatever? He's like, well, I was afraid, of course. I'm married. Who wouldn't be afraid of getting found out? So I thought that was an interesting response. Now, it shows that he was emailing Amy as up to the morning of her death. And he does say that even after the confrontation with Todd, that Todd never showed any anger or animosity towards him. And he says that he wanted to slow things down with Amy. And he made it very clear to her that if she was going to leave Todd, that it was, like, not for him, but on her own terms. Now, my viewpoint of what I saw and the way he talked and just a few email exchanges we saw, they did not keep him up there that long. I kind of got the vibe that I was like, this guy's not really into her. Yeah, I don't know what was said behind closed doors, this, that, and the other, but the way he talked was very much, and that could have changed because I don't know if he's still with his wife and he needs to sound a certain way or whatever, but I was just like, yeah, this is a guy that has a side piece and is kind of telling that side piece what they need to hear to keep the side piece going, if that makes sense. So, you know, I don't know. It kind of sounded, because from Amy, it sounded like, you know, my gosh, this could be her next love and this, that, and the other. But then he's up there and, like, even reading the emails where he's just kind of like, you know. So I thought that was very eye-opening. So then Patricia Christopherson gets up there, and she basically lived next to Amy's mom and stepdad. And she talks about how she would text with Amy. She would visit with them, you know, when Amy would come visit her parents. And she talks about how, you know, Amy confided in her that she wasn't happy in the marriage. She told her about the past affair. She told her about the current affair. She said that she wanted to marry Jerry. She also said that, you know, Tristan was becoming a lot like Todd. And at one point that she said that Todd wouldn't want a divorce because he'd lose half of everything and it wasn't socially acceptable. Now, at one point, Patricia basically is like, I tried to refocus her thoughts and processes and like going to work out with me and stuff like that and getting away from that, but essentially she had kind of slowed down her communications with her. Now, the last witness of the day was Carrie Callan, and she worked with Amy at some t-shirt shop, and essentially the biggest thing of her testimony is she was showing the text messages where Amy's like, it's really tense around here today, it's still tense here today, and that was the day of the murder. So we are seeing from all these things, like the story is adding up. We get it, she was having an affair. We get it, she was telling numerous people about this affair. They were denying it. It's going on. Todd was suspicious. Did he have reason to be? Well, obviously, yeah. So he didn't want to get divorced. Doesn't sound like she truly wanted to get divorced. So it was just this very cumbersome, messy triangle. What we still don't have, though, take all that away. Again, these are not reasons that somebody gets beaten to death and stuck with a pitchfork. So we still don't have an alternative to what took place. Meaning, being offered, well, this person did it or that person did it. Looking at conversations and stuff, a lot of people are kind of like, oh, what about the son and what about this? I mean, there's like some definite wild theories here that could take place. And the defense just isn't really offering me. I mean, they're not really offering anything, but neither is the state. Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, this is such a circumstantial case that it's like nobody else is on the farm, at the time, no strangers, whatever, that you know of. But hey, there's lots of buildings, There's lots of people that probably could have, reason to not really like Amy. Sounds like people that have reasons to not like Todd. So, and there's reasons for them both to not like each other. I mean, that's already going on. So there's all this stuff like that going on. And at the end of the day, Tristan, his testimony wasn't really reliable. And he's kind of the only eyewitness. And so it's one of these things where, okay, someone did it. She didn't fall on that rake, I can tell you that. So far there's just nothing compelling. Now, do I think it's enough to acquit him or whatever? I don't know. Because it's, again, when you look at everything, I mean, numerous people have said, not just like the busybody friends and stuff, numerous people have testified about she didn't feel safe. This guy seems like he's a loose cannon, so on and so forth. So, she ends up dead, and all this is going on, and she's texting, talking about how tense it is. I mean, it's not a good look. But, in the court of law, it'll be very, very interesting to see what comes of this case. So that's it for today. I'm going to let this video go away. Don't forget to check out the podcast. And we're actually working on a new format to do the podcast kind of like on a YouTube video version of it, and then the podcast like on Apple and stuff that we already do. So I think it'll be fun and cool, and we're working on that, so stay tuned, because we're going to do that for the Amber Geiger trial. So, but right, as of now, check down the description below. You can find links to a bunch of stuff and from my website, as well as direct links to where the podcast is, which is just on Reese from Toxic Bliss. We have conversations about different parts of the cases. So thank you for hanging out with me. I hope you have a great fall pumpkin spice kind of a day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.